with lists is that you can actually nest lists inside other lists. And this might be useful if you're trying to, say, figure out how to make a navigation bar on your page with a drop down, for example. For example, if you wanted to make something that looks like this up here, and you wanted to be able to click and see some kind of drop down list items. So the structure of what that might look like in your HTML is you might have a list, and then you might have a sublist inside of that list. And it pays to know how to nest lists inside other lists because, as we've seen before, right, you can nest elements inside other elements. What that looks like is, let's say we wanted to give some more specific directions in our recipe example in terms of beating the eggs. So how to beat the eggs. And we want to do that as a sublist. So I want it to kind of pop down over here and kind of show a couple extra directions before we get into stir in eggs here. So all we need to do is we just need to nest a UL or an OL inside this OL. So essentially we're just declaring a new element. Let's do it as a UL. Notice what happened right off the bat. So because I haven't closed off this UL, it's just treating this LI and this one as part of this UL, right? And that's why they got all weird, which again just demonstrates the importance of always closing off your tags right away. Right, so now we have a UL, and all I need to do is add list items. So let's do a couple LIs here. We can say whip eggs with whip thingy. I don't really know off the top of my head what that thing is called. It's not a spatula, I know that, but you want to whip eggs with a whip thingy as the first direction, and then you want to get lots of air into the eggs, LI, and then, I don't know, let eggs settle. As you can tell, I'm not much of a baker myself, but anyway, you can see that we have this this sublist now, and it kind of auto formats it in terms of what kind of bullet points it uses, because the browser picked up, oh, this is a list that's inside another list, so I'm going to indent this appropriately. Right? Contrast to this bullet point down here, it does look a little bit different. And it just goes to show, if you know how to nest elements inside other elements, you can make some pretty cool stuff. Right? This could just as easily have been an ordered list if we do OL here. Right? It just kind of restarts a new list. That's why it starts at 1. And if you want to get crazy, you could even do list inside of a list. /ul like so. Too many lists. /li. Right, so this works if you have kind of a complex navigation. For example, you want drop downs on top of drop downs. But just starting, you don't want to get too complex with your lists because even just looking at the code now, right, it's kind of hard to understand what's going on because we have an opening UL, then we have another opening UL, closing. It's kind of hard to kind of backtrace, especially if your indentation is slightly off. Right, if this was indented over there and this was over there and this was over here, it's kind of really hard to understand exactly what's going on. So it is possible, but you don't want to go overboard with your nesting. Right? And as usual, you can always add in a comment if you want to say add some kind of indicator, for example. So you could say inner list. Right? This would be a note to yourself to be like, oh, that's what this is for. Okay. And then you could maybe add another comment here, end of inner list. Right, so highly encourage you to use comments. It really kind of helps parse out your code if it does have a lot of kind of complexity to it as well.